Action!
Ação!
Tá gravando aí?
Ação!
Deixa eu sincronizar o áudio. Melissa, cheers! Say cheers for Brazil.
Cheers for Brazil!
Viu que o César, Caio são terapeutas, César é intérprete de todos os cursos, inclusive da Melissa. Mas a gente vai falar inglês a partir de agora, então liga a tecla SAP ou escuta o que o César vai falar. We're talking in your area about children care. How integrative hypnosis can work with this kind of people, especially kind of people.
These kind of people that are small.
Yeah, it's
These kind of
small.
people that are small and short and kind of annoying.
Yeah,
Those kind of people.
This
Kids.
one.
Kids. A lot of kids, all ages. And one of the biggest things that I think is vital for any practitioner working with kids is to offer them power, right? So integrative hypnosis, as you know, after 4 days of hanging out, is all about arming my client to change themselves. So with kids, it's really about teaching them that they have the power. They have the power to change. They have the power to change their emotions, to be able to feel safe, to express their emotions. I teach kids different ways of talking about emotions and describing them and drawing them and coloring them and different ways of shifting out of them. And we call them tricks, magic tricks, or we call them superpowers. And for me, the main thing that I do is I make sure the kid, number one, knows I'm on their side, right? So parents come in and they say, I want you to fix my kid.
Yeah.
And I say,
sometimes the problem is with the parents.
more than sometimes. Many times the problem is with the parent. And so oftentimes I'll even suggest to the parents that they have a session with me. And sometimes they have a session with me and they never need to bring me their kid because the problem was them. So I am always listening for the dynamic. And so the kid needs to know that I'm there for them, that I get why their parent wants to bring them. And I always say, I know what your mom thinks you should do, but I'm here for you. And if I had a magic wand, and I have 2 or 3 magic wands in my office.
Do you have this?
See.
Nice.
Because I've created some Harry Potter spells. So, you know, I kind of tap into the kid's desire to be magical, because ultimately, once again, it comes back to powerlessness.
But how old is this child? Since
So I see kids from ages 5 to 95. You know, there's that wounded child in all of us, and sometimes, you know, all of my tricks and techniques that are designed for children are the very same tricks and techniques that I use with grown-ups. So you know, with kids, if you take all that you've learned from me these 4 days, almost all of it applies to children. Almost all of it. See the meta pattern, the self-directed neuroplasticity frame, arming kids to change their own brain, affect regulation tools, which just means giving kids the power and the ability to change their emotions, to own them, to change them, to get out of anxiety, to put on a superhero cloak and go into the situations that they couldn't go into before. Now, powerlessness is one of the things that in research study after research study with adults, the heart disease, the immune dysfunction that comes from people who are not in a position of power but work for someone else. And one of the things about not being in control of your own life when you work for someone is your heart rate, your heart disease goes up, stroke goes up, diabetes goes up. So if you think about how we've measured that with adults and how damaging that feeling of powerlessness is, now imagine amplifying it by 1,000 times, because at least the adult gets to choose what they want for breakfast. They get to choose where they go. They get to choose who they connect with, what they do every day. But if you're a child, you make none of those decisions. And ultimately that puts children in a position where the only way that they have control is to act out, is to do that thing that is getting them in trouble. Because sometimes too, it is the only way to get the parents' total attention. Because what they have discovered in research is that negative attention is better than no attention. So if the parent is on their cell phone, and the kid says, and the parent finally puts the fucking cell phone down and gives the kid a direct attention, even if it's negative, it's something. And so a lot of it is education for the parent and bonding with the kid to give them some power in their life, to give them the ability to manage the biggest things in their life, which is their emotions.
A lot of times the parents put the responsibility to education in YouTube, in videos, and not directly to the kids.
I love when you said that you are always on the kid's side.
Always.
Because if they don't want to change, if they are not like feeling bad about that, parents are to tell the children, the kid, he or she needs to change.
See, so not only that, kids need to know that they have someone, and in the time when the parent is taking them to get help, a lot of times the kids don't feel that they have the parent, because the parent is already taking that and giving it to someone else, or the conflict is with the parent. I listen to parents talk about their kids when their kids are sitting right there. And they talk about these kids in a way that I would never want them to talk about anyone, let alone someone they love. And I point it out. And I say it right in front of the kid.
And what do you do when the kid does not recognize the emotions? When we talk about fear, when we talk about anxiety, if the children they don't know what is anxiety, what is fear.
So they don't have to label it. They don't have to know the name of the emotion. And oftentimes the initial session with a kid will be something that the kid just sits there and they don't know what to expect. They don't know who I am. So sometimes I break the ice by doing the change work on the parent. I say to the parent, can I show you a trick? Can I show you how to take fear? I speak to the parents beforehand, so I have some idea. So I can say to the parent, I have a trick that stops fear. Do you want to learn it? And then I look at the kid and I say, you don't have to. Let me show mommy. And maybe when you go home, mommy can show you.
Oh, nice.
So sometimes that's the trick. Sometimes it's, sometimes I sit there, if the parent is really annoying to me, I will ask the parent to leave, and the kid sits down. And I have a bunch of stuff in my office, sometimes a hypnotic spiral. And I say, have you ever seen this? Sometimes we just play. Sometimes I let the kid get up and see what they want to touch, what they want to talk about. Sometimes I just tell stories. Sometimes I say.
Do you use puppets?
I have in the past, not so much anymore. New York children are a little skeptical. Yeah. They know that already. They think, all right, lady. Like even a 6-year-old is going to be like. So I know what's
fool
funny?
me.
Don't try to
This
fool
is
me.
so
I know
right.
your voice.
So I would rather talk up to a kid over their head than talk down to a kid.
Instead of
So,
patronizing them, right?
see, so I run the risk of them not understanding me, but at least I don't run the risk of me patronizing them. You know, so I'll be like, Mommy thinks that you don't, you know, that you don't know how to do da 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 da. I think you might.
It's also when you give the kid the power to do the change.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
it's her all
See.
it's power.
And it's interesting too, Melissa, because sometimes, as far as I have observed, sometimes the parents are the problem because they fight in front of the children all the time,
There's-
and they expect the children to have a different behavior.
That's
And
it.
that's impossible because they're just copying. And so when the child is aggressive at school, when they're bullying at school, the problem is usually the parents. You're just
Almost always.
replicating.
Almost
a
always.
behavior.
And it doesn't even have to be that blatant. It's the subtle things that kids never miss.
That's true.
And how can you? You're right. How can you tell kids not to talk back when that's all they see? It's all they know. They're learning from us unconsciously all the time.
And especially from the most important role models.
See?
Yeah, and the children can absorb more things than an adult. They can learn faster.
Like a
Well,
sponge.
they can learn faster. Their brains are wiring at such a rate that is crazy. And the truth is, they're wide open. They're wide open. They don't have that guarded, real, full-on critical faculty that is in place. Everything gets in. Now, earlier when somebody asked about their kid, and they said my kid is 4 or 5, doing this little tick, doing this compulsive behavior, and I said, please leave it alone. Because kids will go through these phases always.
Everybody
And
does.
everybody does.
Everybody.
But what we do nowadays is we isolate it, we label it as a problem. We then try to fix it because we're trying to be good parents. We're afraid to not pay attention to these things. And unfortunately, then the kid becomes a patient. Once the kid becomes a patient, he self-identifies as someone who has something wrong, rather than a kid that has all of these different phases they go to. So I often tell that to parents. I say, look, please trust me on this. Leave it alone. And if in 6 months is still a problem, then bring them in.
Because when you say to the kid, she or her or she or he has a problem, it's a suggestion.
See?
Just
Then
a
they become-
suggestion
Yeah,
by
and
the
then-
parents. The most of the time.
Yeah, and it's a
Exactly.
constant attention
Yeah.
to it. And now you see the kid, like I said, that attention is better than no attention. Now, if every time the kid sucks the thumb, bites, acts out, they have full attention. They've got a parent who's, worried about them, trying to fix them, even yelling at them for it. They're the focus of attention. And so there's more payoff to doing the thing than stopping the thing. So there's a lot involved.
just
But
begins.
just to answer your question, directly, I mean, the first thing we do is give kids power. I teach kids to go into self-hypnosis. I teach kids to make movies they want to star
In
in.
other words, you can do direct suggestion. It's work too.
Absolutely.
It's works very good.
Yeah. See.
So fantastic.
Yeah.
Melissa, thank you
Sorry.
very much.
I'm like,
What?
literally
Everybody's-
soaking wet.
We're just
Oh,
pretending
anyway.
we're not.
there were some kids here.
But before we stop, you
Sorry.
wanted to talk about a couple of things, and I figured we might as well do that in the same.
Yeah, I just want to thank you very much, all of us, because you are a reference for me, hypnotherapy, and I love the way you see things. Like, it's easy. It's not like that magical transformation from that different state or everything. It's simple, and we can make it simple. I mean, if you have some tools that we can maybe do a little change with that tool, we can help everyone.
See?
Everyone.
See?
So
You
I
know-
love that. I love that the way you like to understand what's beneath everything that I just
Yeah,
love.
how is this happening?
Yeah.
What's underneath it? How
Exactly.
can we make it simpler? How can we make it more applicable to most people? If there's a fraction of the population that can achieve this state, how can we make an intervention that gets everybody on board?
You
And
want
so it's, you know, it's funny because in Brazil there is, I've been talking a lot with the women in the class, and they're so grateful to hear a slightly different side, right? And the thing that I just kept talking about with the difference between my form of hypnosis and the more traditional hypnosis
Yes, it's very different.
is, you know, the more traditional, especially Brazil, has its macho,
yeah.
kind of macho, mucho macho, you know, sleep. I'm outside of hypnosis, commanding you to go in, and for me, I go in and I invite you, and it's a very different vibe, it's a different feel, it's a different way of thinking about the relationship. You know, I'm all about putting the power where it belongs, and that is with the client. I never want people to think me, the hypnotist, is going to fix you.
Yeah,
Right?
no,
And it's
no.
my power, and I
Exactly.
fix you. And
No.
that's total bullshit.
Yeah,
It's a-
we need
it's-
to
it's a
do
dance.
that together.
Yeah.
See,
It's
a dance.
The couple work.
Yeah, co-creative.
Together. Yeah, co-creative.
See.
Yeah, yeah.
And to me, that's the fun, that's the dance. It's the dynamic form of give and take between you and your client, and more importantly, you put the responsibility, and think about that word, response, ability, the
Yeah.
ability to respond. And
Nice.
so you put the responsibility where it rightly belongs, which is with the client. You give them the power. You teach them how to change their brain. You teach them how to go into these deep states and explore. You're the facilitator. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You show the
And
way.
yeah, and I think it's really important, and it's something that I think will help hypnosis to move into the next century, which is, you know, understanding what's happening in the brain, understanding who's really doing the work.
This is very important.
See, take off the fucking cape. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it has to move, you know. I was having a conversation earlier about, you know, the authoritative, old, you know, I mean, Dave Ellman was fantastic. That was the 1950s.
Yeah. He
Let's-
created.
But let's look at everything and how medicine in the 1950s versus now.
Yeah.
The arts, photography, video, communication,
The way we listen to music,
the
right?
way we listen to music, the way we create, everything is so different. And yet hypnosis in many areas stays the same.
Stays the same.
Like I was talking to you about education.
That's right.
You can look at every single mode of transportation, my God, from, you know, a horse and a
Cars.
carriage to, you know, a jet to
No,
the
airplane.
charger up to the moon, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
our school, our classroom looks identical to how it looked
But not only
100, 200 years ago.
looks and acts,
Looks
which is
and
even
acts.
worse.
And so we have to keep up with the new brain. You know, kids are born. My daughter, I have this image of her. She's 4 years old. She's on the computer, right? Because I had gotten her some learning games. And my daughter at 4 is playing. At 5, she's really in there. But I have this image of my daughter, maybe she's 6. She's typing faster than I could ever type. And she's doing this, and I hand her a banana. She takes a banana and just
So there wasn't
That's
a good
it.
pattern interruption.
it was like from this to this. If I want to annoy my daughter, she's 18 now. If I want to annoy her, I send a text while sitting next to her. Because she goes, What do you want to say? So they come into this world and they're hardwired for this century, and we want to shove them back into that. So to me, if the hypnosis world does not evolve, if it does not look at the science and the research and catch up, it's never going to survive into the next century. Only the people that are doing the, that are more open.
And we can
And
start it now.
Oh, shit, yeah.
We are,
Well, I
yeah.
started 20 years ago.
Yeah, I'm late.
But you
now.
can start now.
Yeah, I'm starting. I'm learning with the best. With Caesar. She'll give me a
My
punch.
Brazilian voice.
I wish.
Yeah,
My
she'll give me
Brazilian
a
voice.
punch in a soon. So Melissa, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here in Brazil again.
Sim.
Your third time here.
Eu
So-
também. Eu também.
In the first time in my channel. So thank you very much. Thank you very much everything.
Thank you.
Se você gostou do vídeo, se você gosta do trabalho da Melissa,
And
cheers.
that's a wrap.
And sleep.
Então é isso, o vídeo acabou. Faz aquelas coisas que vocês fazem aí no YouTube, de dar like no vídeo. Say like in the video.
Say what?
Do like in the video.
Like the
Like-
video.
Oh, like the video.
Like the video.
Like the video.
Faz essas coisas aí, dá um like.
Like the video.
E manda aí, comenta embaixo essas coisas e beijo no cérebro. Say a kiss in the brain. Kiss in the brain.
Kiss me.
Kiss the brain.
Yeah. Tchau. Você tá mandando a Melissa,
And
cheers.
that's a wrap.